Hey, Paul, what's a good indication that people you meet have genuine confidence?
They're okay with who they are in their own skin. And when they screw up, make a mistake, have a failure, they don't have a problem with it because they know they're a human being and human beings make mistakes.
Paul, you have a great story that I think most people would rather forget from when you were a high school senior and last game of the season, and you guys are marching toward what would be the go-ahead touchdown in a game where a playoff seeding is on the line. So it's a big game. Stands are full. You guys are about to score a touchdown, and then you fumbled.
Yeah, everything was going great up until that point. We're moving down the field. We're in the flow. Call timeout. Coach gives us a play. We go to the huddle. Wanted to catch the defense off guard. Called it on the quick sound.
Right.
Okay, the first sound.
So you got to just get up there and go.
So, and because we had a little different formation. So I'm up under center. I thought was under center. and I'm looking down the line, and I'm looking at the fact that someone's in the wrong position. This does not look right.
Right.
I didn't realize that it was actually me.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the time to reset and change because we had the quick sound. The linemen were down on the ground and they were starting to vibrate and you had to go. So I go, hut!
And the ball just goes.
The ball goes straight up in the air.
Right. Because you were lined up under the guard.
Because I was lined up behind the guard. Behind the guard. And our guy fell on it and about 6 Servite Friars fell on the top of him.
And that was it.
Game over.
Game over. It was fourth down. I didn't mention that.
That's fourth down. Yeah, it's fourth down, 4th and 4. And so we lose the game, and they're one of our rivals. It was one of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened to me, right. Because there were a variety of reasons behind it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I lined up behind the guard
right.
in a game
right.
when I was a starting quarterback, and everybody was counting on me to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out.
Yeah, and you're like, it's the whole thing, man, in the arena. You're on that stage. It's not like a little mess up that nobody sees. You're in front of the whole student body. Everybody's there at the game. And so it's a very public mistake. But what was interesting is the second part of that story is, from what I understand, Paul Hackett was at the time recruiting you to get you a scholarship to be a quarterback, which obviously worked out. And he didn't see what happened because he had left the game early. And so he called you the next day and said, hey, I heard a bunch of noise and a lot of commotion. And so what did you tell him? Like, you could have at that point said, hey, I don't know. It was just kind of loud, coach. I don't know why there was, but you owned up to it.
So the game was on a Friday. I think he called me Saturday night. So I was still bummed out.
Right.
Bummed out. And I was
right.
taking abuse from my teammates.
Right.
It was a gut check time. It was like, how could you do that? You start having these sense of doubt about your abilities, and he calls, right? And he's the guy that's recruiting me to go to Cal. He was at Cal at the time. He was the quarterback coach, and Paul Hackett gives me a call. He says, hey, great job last night, And I'm still in a funk.
Right.
So I'm like,
and he's telling you played great, and you're like,
well, yeah, okay, yeah. And then he says, hey, just what you said. Hey, I was leaving, and something happened on the field. I couldn't tell what was going on at the end of the game. What happened?
In his story, he was already out of the stadium, so he heard something but didn't see it. And so
maybe got a glimpse of a scrum or didn't really.
Yeah, but
he knew what happened.
Right.
He and I had never, ever talked about it until 40 years later. But anyway, in the conversation on the phone, there was this, it seemed like a pause. I paused for like 2 minutes. Because I'm trying to think, okay.
How do I tell the guy recruiting me to give me my college scholarship to play quarterback that I lined up under guard?
Yeah, and one of my strengths was being a smart guy. Throw that on top of that's like a little cherry on top.
Right.
So all these things, these different scenarios are whipping through my mind. How should I answer him? Does he really know the truth? Well, he'll find out. So I have this internal conversation.
Right.
Yeah, the good Paul, the bad Paul. The good Paul won out because I was like, hey, it happened.
Right.
It was a bummer. We lost the game.
Yeah.
We got a game next week.
Right.
We're going to the playoffs regardless. It doesn't really matter. And we can resurrect this
So
whole
you
thing.
told him that what happened?
I said, Coach, you're not going to believe this, but I lined up behind the guard.
Wow.
And the center snapped the ball.
Right.
And then there was a long pause on his side.
And now you're going,
he said,
am I still going to play college football?
He's like,
oh, God,
oh.
please.
Well, that's happened before.
Oh, wow, good.
And when he said that, the first thing that I thought of was, you're my guy.
Right.
Wherever you go, I'm going.
Right.
Because he believed in me.
Right.
And enough to not take that little mishap, which actually a big mishap, what cost us a game, but that mishap to represent who I was.
Right.
As a quarterback, as a person, as an individual, as the kind of character and integrity that I have to come out. But
there's a great, just to interrupt you
Yeah.
really quick, there's a great saying that we're not defined by our worst moments, right? And that's exactly a perfect example of that. If you define Paul McDonald, the quarterback, by that one moment, he's a failure, and why would you ever give him a chance? But obviously that's not true.
Well, here was an opportunity for me to come clean,
Right.
to tell the truth
Right.
about myself when something incredibly embarrassing happened, and it was a major faux pas. And I did it.
Right.
I did it. I came clean, and there was immense, I think, respect
I was going to just say that.
from his perspective towards me, because he knew, he had to know that was a difficult thing to spit out of your mouth.
Right. And you were honest and you held yourself accountable and didn't try and skirt around it. Yeah, and so I would imagine over the years that really strengthened your bond and created that, on both sides, right? Created that sense of trust and sense of respect because you did come clean.
And it was that bond between the two of us, that transparency, that manifested itself in 2 Rose Bowl wins, a national championship win, an NFL playoff appearance in 1982 when he was my coach at Cleveland in 1982, and him bringing me to Dallas in 1986.
At the end of your career?
At the end of my career for a couple seasons.
Right.
Because he knew he could trust me.
Right.
And when you have those kinds of conversations in difficult moments,
Right.
you develop respect and trust for one another.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people who lack confidence tend to put on the dog. They tend to not be very honest about who they really are because they don't want people to see their insecurities. And I think they have to learn to understand, and would you agree that it's okay not to be perfect and it's okay to fail and grow from it rather than to hide it and pretend like you're something that you're not?
I think everybody lives in their own little world, really.
Yeah.
This is how I envision things, and this is the way it's supposed to turn out, and this is the life I have, and this is who I am. As we know, being human beings, there are bumps in the road, there are curves in the road, there are detours in the road that are all there for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Growth.
Yeah.
Growth. Paying attention to those opportunities that allow us to grow when we make a mistake.
Right.
And moving through those, opportunities into becoming a more evolved human being.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how you said we're all in our own little bubble. It's almost like we're the star of our own movie. And we want that movie to be great, right? We want everything to be perfect. We want to have the great house, the great wife, the great kids, the great everything. And when anything goes a little sideways, I think for some people especially, it's the natural inclination is to try and hide that and pretend like everything's fine. And for the people who are really, I think, insecure, not only hide it, but actually overcompensate by bragging and being kind of like that sort of super extroverted guy that seems like, he's Mr. Confidence, but in reality, he's quite the opposite.
Happens all the time. You see that. Some of the most financially successful people I know, they're not driving Lamborghinis. They're not driving Rolls Royces. They're driving, Lincoln Continentals, which is a nice car.
Right.
But they could be getting any car they want.
Right.
And they don't need to put on a show because everyone knows who they are.
Yeah.
It's those people that are out there that maybe they don't have the reputation, or that other people know how successful or how impeccable they are with their business. It's mostly around business and financial success, the material world.
Right, the material world.
Yes, it's the material world. I always say, you judge a man or a woman by not what they do in public, but what they do privately.
Right.
And if you're one and the same, if what you do privately is the same as how you behave publicly, that's your authentic self.
Yeah.
Now that may be received well or not. It doesn't matter. That's who you are. I learned a valuable lesson when I was doing radio. Okay, when I was doing radio for USC football for 15 years, when I first started, I tried to be perfect with my languaging and how I say things and what I say and when I say it and when I don't say it, instead of just being me.
Yeah.
And it took me 2, 3, 4 years of doing it, because you're on live radio for 4 hours.
Right.
4 hours. Okay,
Right.
so how do you fake it for 4 hours? Hard to do.
Right.
So I just said, screw it, I'm gonna be me.
Right.
And I made mistakes on the air. I said things that came out funny, that's not what I intended to say, or stumbled. And I remember, because I was so comfortable with my play-by-play guy, Pete Arbogast, who was the best guy to work with, unbelievable partner. I go, Pete, did I just say that? Shoot, here's what I wanted to say. So just come clean with it.
Right.
You know, recognizing that, hey, I made a mistake.
Right.
And that's okay. And that's what people need to do. People need to understand that they are a human being.
Yes.
And they make mistakes. Athletes, especially because they're performing all the time, they're in the focus. You mentioned it. It's a very public thing. Any performer. You're at a sales meeting with a bunch of people sitting around waiting to put on the show, and it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you take away from that? Did you pay attention? Here, maybe here's how I can improve. This is what I can do better. Okay, next time I'll be better. That's how it occurred. You know, I ended up winning 2 or 3 awards for the Southern California Sports Broadcasters Association by being a radio analyst of the year.
Right.
Okay, so people want to have relationships and see authentic people.
100%. And the other thing about it is, if you keep sort of pushing down your failures and pretending they don't exist, you never grow, right? Because your inability to acknowledge it and hold yourself accountable for what you maybe didn't do well keeps you ironically in that same position, because you never grow from it. You know, I coached a lot of youth sports for my kids when I was growing up, and inevitably after we lost a game, a parent or a kid would come up and blame the ref, right? And you're like, no. You know, if anybody's been around sports enough knows that out of 100 games, maybe one of them was lost because of bad calls by a ref. The other 99 losses were on the team that lost. You know, it's just, so how do you get better? That's the next step. How do you get better? You made a mistake, you didn't win a game, whatever it is that you didn't succeed in life, how do you get better? Instead of trying to just shove it in the corner and pretend like it doesn't exist.
You know, you could rationalize anything.
Yeah, you sure can. You sure can.
But it's all about our response. It's all about what we can control. We've talked about this before. It's hugely important. And coming clean. You know, coming clean is a sign of strength. That's a sign of power, coming clean.
Yeah,
a sign of weakness is just what you just said, is shoving it off in the corner, pretending it didn't happen, rationalizing this or that, or whatever it might be, or like I said, pretending it didn't even happen, like this never happened before, or not addressing it. That's a sign of insecurities, of weakness. Power, real power, is being transparent, being authentic, stating it as it is, and admitting I screwed up, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of strength, power, true confidence.
Yeah, and some people think the opposite. They think, wow, you know, if you acknowledge any of your shortcomings, it's a sign of weakness, because you're showing that weak side of you, that side of you that's not perfect. And they don't come to realize that people figure it out anyways. They might think that they've got the world fooled, but they don't. People know that they've made mistakes, and then by not acknowledging them, they kind of compound it, not only for themselves, but even people's perception of them. People know. People have it figured out. So what's the point of even trying to put on this facade? Because people know. They do. They figure it out pretty quickly if you're an authentic or an inauthentic person. It doesn't take long.
I think it's important for men, because men have this, you know, I'm the man of the household, I'm the leader of the pack, I'm the alpha male, all of this. I can't, you're right, just like you just said, I can't afford to show any weakness. That's wrong. That's wrong, because you're never going to get truly close to others because they're not going to know what to believe.
Right.
You know, what's right, what's wrong, and leaders of the world today, leaders of companies, leaders in the classroom, everyone wants to, the people that are following them are smart. And like you said, they're intuitive. They're gonna know. They know. It might be an energetic thing. Maybe nothing they said, but maybe just the feeling that they get.
Right.
So why not just be open and honest?
And and we talked about genuine confidence, and that is how you build genuine confidence, is figuring out what you're great at, the things that you're not so good at, and obviously, hopefully steering yourself more toward the things you're great at. But when you do make those mistakes, going out and just making yourself better. And when you do that, you start to develop a confidence in yourself because you do something that you didn't think you could do before. And so you have two responses to something negative happening. You can pretend like it doesn't exist and hide it and run away from it, or you can just acknowledge it and get better. And that, when you do get better, go, wow, I can do this. And little by little, that confidence kind of comes in.
I think true confidence is being authentic. It's knowing who you are. It's being okay with making a mistake. And when you have that kind of feeling and sense and air about yourself, the relationships you create are going to be so much more substantial. And I think that's what we're all searching for.
And we talk a lot about sports. I think this is something a lot of coaches especially should really learn to understand, is that they have to not only hold their players accountable, but they have to hold themselves accountable and stand in front of their team and say, you know what, I didn't prepare you properly this week. It was my fault. We lost this game because it was my mistakes, not yours. Those coaches who do that in a genuine way, and they're not just blowing smoke, just to make the team feel better, but they really come clean, they get the respect of their players, and those players will go through brick walls for them. Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
This is the part where we're supposed to tell people to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay, will you please do that then? I mean,
Yeah.
if you enjoy it,
Yeah.
please do.
And if you don't, do it anyways, because we need your help.
We do.
Also, we have a website called GameChangeNation.com. Just go there and subscribe and you'll get tons of free content.
And what we're really trying to do is create a community of people that love sports.
Yep.
And the great lessons that we learn from sports, but we want to hear from you.
We do. So we're going to have a bunch of social media pages, from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. Instagram, I probably already said all of them. Please join them and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and we wrote a book.
Oh,
Forgot about that.
Forgot that.
The book is called Through the Tunnel. It's available on Amazon now. If you go straight down here to this link that you can see below us, you will be able to purchase it. We'd love it if you could do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.